Hello, everyone. This is Coach Chris Morty with Coach Matt Insell. Coach, how you doing today?
Doing great. I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, Coach, when did you realize that coaching was something you wanted to do for the rest of your life?
I guess I was born into it. My father was a high school coach, so my whole childhood growing up was spent in high school gyms on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Friday, and Saturdays, and getting out of school when I was in elementary school and getting on the bus and riding to the high school and being there at practice to 6 o'clock at night. In my family, the Insell family, I don't think we had much choice but to coach. If you didn't coach, then, I think they'd look at you a little different. But realized at a very young age, as I was playing high school basketball, I had some offers to go to Division II, NAIA, different things like that. And I made a decision then that I wanted to make a career of coaching. And at the time, women's basketball was kind of in a transition phase of a lot of sets and all of that to opening the floor up, playing more, I guess a system wise, kind of similar to what men play of dribble drive stuff, ball screens, all of those type of things. And so I made a decision to go to the University of Tennessee and work on the men's side for Buzz Peterson, because I wanted to learn more about that type of play. And I'd learned a lot on the women's side from my father, but I wanted to get a different viewpoint of what the ball screen progression stuff was, dribble drive things, the NBA way of isolations and different things like that. And so that's when I really made a jump into it, of really trying to learn the game and really studying it from that aspect. And from there, I go to Louisiana Tech for a year, then Kentucky for 5 years, and Ole Miss as head coach for 5 years, and now I just finished my fourth season at Middle Tennessee State.
Mm-hmm. You're a native of Tennessee, correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. If you were to use one word to describe a basketball player from Tennessee, what would it be and why?
Shooters. In Tennessee, we're known for great shooters, and anybody that's played us at Middle, I think we led the nation in 3-point attempts and maybe even 3-pointers made. You can go to any gym in the state of Tennessee. If you're looking for a shooter, this is where you come for high school basketball. We may not have people that can break you down and cross you up and do things like that. But we do have a lot of players in this state that can stand out there and shoot the basketball. I think the NCAA 3-point shooting contest, Kendall Spray just won that. She's a local Tennessee girl here. Went to Florida Gulf Coast, and then actually went to Florida. Went to Clemson, and then to Florida Gulf Coast. And it's a great shooter. But there's players like that all throughout our state. And so when you look in the state of Tennessee, shooters is a big part of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. If you were to use one word to describe a coaching style, what would it be and why?
Intense. I'm a very intense person, attention to detail. Our players would probably say I'm intense. I want things done at the right way, and we want perfection on everything we do. At the same time, players coach, being there for our players on and off the floor. I say this, we push our players here at Middle Tennessee to get more out of themselves than they even think that's in them. And but at the same time, we love them, and they know that we're there for them. So we get beat in the NIT finals against Seton Hall. I go to dinner with some friends. My wife goes home because we have a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old. She goes home with them. I get back to my house, and 3 of our girls are sitting there rewatching the game at my house with my wife. And so it shows it tells you there that for me, when I walked in, I said, you know what, we're doing something special with these young ladies. That they're comfortable enough after a loss that they're coming right over here to the house and rewatching the game and playing with my children and things like that. But I want to be known for our players as I'm there for them no matter what it is. When we step on the basketball court, we're all business. When we step off the floor, we're a family. And and that's the biggest thing that we want our young ladies to know here at Middle Tennessee State.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You cut your teeth early, for what I know, on the AAU circuit, correct?
Yep.
With Tennessee Flight, over 40 Division I players during your tenure there. AAU is a different monster. A lot of people, they don't know. Like it's a whole nother monster, highly intense, very quick turnaround, a bunch of games in a weekend. very, very precious situation. Two-part question. Tell me about that time in your life and two of the best players you coached against.
One of the things, two of the best players I coached against, I have to think about that one. I've coached against some really good ones. But one of my biggest pet peeves that irritates me in college coaching is there's a lot of college coaches out there that want to talk about the things that the summer coaches, AAU coaches, Nike travel, Adidas travel, Under Armour, they want to talk about these guys like they know what they go through. They know that they're making money or they're doing this or doing that. And they shed a lot of bad light on a lot of, if not some of our best coaches that there is in summer basketball. I had bigger battles against summer basketball coaches and had to think more about how to adjust and do different things in summer basketball than I did as a head coach at Ole Miss at times. And so from a standpoint of that, I have so much respect for the summer basketball coaches because I was one of them, and I still consider myself one of them. I'm still excited about seeing the Boo Williams schedule when it comes out. I remember when Boo's schedule was always the last one out. It never came out to about Wednesday before the tournament started on Friday. We're getting ready to leave on Thursday morning and go. We still don't have a schedule, and you would sit up all night and refreshing Boo's website to figure out if the schedule is ever going to pop up. A lot of the guys don't remember that, but the newer guys don't, because Boo's more organized these days. But back then, him and Benny was doing the schedule until about 11:30 on Wednesday night, and Mike Flynn and all those guys trying to get the schedule done. And you never got a schedule done. And but sometimes you didn't get it till you got there. But it irritates me when people sit in the crowd and talk about the summer coaches the way sometimes I hear them talk about them when they have no clue what these guys and girls go through to make sure that these young ladies get to where they have to get to, how much money they're having to spend out of their own pocket, their families' money that they may make at their regular job, that they're having to spend on somebody else's child to help them get to where they want to get to and to be there for them. And my brother still does it to this day. He was telling me yesterday, how the plane tickets that went up to Boo Williams, how they're going to charter bus, they're going to get a charter bus now, and they're going to do all this. And a lot of that money is coming out of his pocket, and to make sure that these young ladies get to where they got to get to so they can get the experience of being able to play in front of college coaches like you and I, and to be able to be successful at the highest level. And so I got a lot of respect for them, and I miss those days. My dad says this all the time, that when he retires at middle, that all the flight coaches better be ready. The ones that did not help us get a player through the years, he's going to remember that when he comes back and takes over the program when he retires at middle. And so I'm going to do the same thing. When I retire at one point in my life, I'm going to go back and coach summer basketball. I enjoy coaching summer basketball. And the friendships I've made through the years of summer basketball, and probably my closest friendships are the Exodus program, that you came out of with Apache and Thomas and all of those guys. Some of my best friends in the world I've made in summer basketball, and people that I talk to every single day. And it's not about calling those guys for a player. I don't necessarily call them to ask them for a player. I call them to see how their families are doing, how their kids are doing, to talk to them about different things that's going on in life. And, because I'm friends with a lot of those guys more than I am recruiting their players. Now, do I want to recruit their players? Absolutely. Do I talk to them about that at some point or another? Yes, what my job says. But beforehand, I'm going to talk about their families. The best player I ever played against was Tina Charles. Tina Charles, I beat her in the 15 and under AAU national championship in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And I'd never seen a player as good as Tina Charles was at that age. And she was as dominant could be. And then probably the next best one that I went against was Kalina Lewis. Kalina Lewis that went to Connecticut. I went against Kalina when she was younger. And this is a funny story. So Kalina's dad and I became real close friends. She was playing for Kevin Morrison. Kevin Morrison is one of my closest friends in the world. That's coaching the West. He was coaching the West Coast Elite. Now it's became the West Coast Premier, why not Premier, whatever it's called now. But Kevin had Kalina Lewis when she was in 8th grade, 9th grade. in 10th grade. And she was as good as there was. I mean, Kalina Lewis could shoot that ball from anywhere, was as talented as an 8th grader, was playing up on the top travel team circuit. As an 8th grader, she looked like she was about 31 years old. And so I got real close with her father and her mom and her family because we was playing against each other, staying at the same hotels. Well, Kevin takes a college job. Well, this is when the bordering state rule was not in. So kids from California could play for people in Tennessee. They could play in New York, wherever they want to play. And so then I was in the process of if I was going to go to Kentucky or not go to Kentucky as an assistant, and was able to convince Kalina Lewis to come play for the Tennessee Flight. And so the best player I played against ended up being a player come into the program. At the same time, I take a job at Kentucky. My brother takes over the program and does it even bigger. He gets Kalina Lewis was already coming into the Tennessee Flight program. Stephanie Dolson out of New York City comes down and plays with the Flight because she was playing out on Long Island for a team, and that team kind of broke up and she didn't want to play in the city. So she comes and plays with Tennessee Flight. And I don't know if you remember this girl, but she was as talented as was McDonald's All-American out in Washington, D.C., of Ronika Ransford.
Yeah.
Nika went to Georgia, but she left her team in D.C. She was playing for Frank Oliver at the time. Frank was not at Bishop McNamara then, but Frank brought Ronika and a couple more of his players to Tennessee Flight as well. So it ended up being a Tennessee Flight team, but it had players from all over the country. And so I say that I bring that story up because Kalina Lewis was the best player I ever played against and the best AAU, one of the best AAU recruits I ever got to come play. And so, AAU and summer basketball is some of the best memories I'll have in my entire life. I tell my wife about them all the time. I'm dreading the day that my son gets old enough to play, because I tell Tony Dorado all the time that I will get back in summer basketball when my son starts playing, and I need a boys contract immediately. He said, well, your son better be really good, or you better find somebody that's really good to play with him.
Yeah. Awesome, Coach. Awesome. So one of your first big, tastes, in the collegiate level, it was early on. If I remember correctly, you worked at, Tennessee, video coordinator. On the men's side, you also worked Pat Summitt's camps.
Yep.
Tell me about that time. Obviously, you're, working for, two legends in the game. Tell me what you learned from them.
I went to Tennessee as a student manager, and a lot of people look down on that. A lot of people want to skip the steps and go to, I want to be an assistant, or I want to be this or that. I went as a student manager working for Buzz Peterson. Buzz is now the assistant GM for the Charlotte Hornets. Are they back the Hornets or the Bobcats? I don't know what they are nowadays. But he's assistant GM in Charlotte with the NBA there. I was a manager working my butt off and washing clothes, doing all those type of things, getting water set up for practice. And our video coordinator gets a job to leave. So Buzz asked me if I knew anything about breaking down film. I knew nothing about breaking down film. I was 18, 19 years old. I was in college. The only thing I knew about in Knoxville at the time, I knew where all the great spots were to hang out at night. That's the only thing I knew. And Ron Slay, I don't know if you remember the name. Ron Slay was a big time player for Tennessee at the time, SEC Player of the Year. I knew Ron from high school days and all that. Ron's like, you can do it. You can do video. Go do it. So I was like, yeah, I know video. I know everything about it. Knew nothing about it. Got in there and figured it out in about 2 or 3 days. Figured out enough about it that I could lie through it. Had a great mentor when it come to that. It's Hal Wilson. Hal was he was working as a GA as well. And so I was working with Hal and learned how to do video stuff. And it was a great 4-year experience I had there on the men's side working for Buzz Peterson, and saw a different part of the game that I probably would have never saw if I didn't do that. At the same time, Buzz gets let go as the head coach at Tennessee after 4 years. And so I was on full scholarship. And so, my dad was a high school coach. My mom was a secretary at the Board of Education. I mean, we didn't have a bunch of money. I was not raised with a silver spoon or gold spoon in my mouth. I didn't get my first vehicle until I went to college, and it didn't have a reverse in it. I had to find parking spots in the parking lot at Tennessee where I was on a hill where maybe it could slide down, or I could go straight out. And when you go on dates and you don't have a reverse in your car, you have to drop your date off at the front and say, I'll be in a minute, so you can circle the parking lot so you can find a spot so you can pull out so she don't know you don't have a reverse. And so I was kind of in a tight spot there trying to figure out how I was gonna get my school paid for and all that. And so then Coach Summit asked me to come over and work for her. The hardest thing I ever did in my life was have to sit in an office, because I'd worked camps for Coach Summit. Coach Summit, I lived in an apartment that was right behind Coach Summit's house. And so when I was trying to figure out an apartment where I was going to live in Knoxville, my dad had sent a lot of players of his at high school to play for Coach Summit. She said, hey, there's no need to look where Matt needs to live. He can just live in these apartments back here behind my house. It's one of the greatest things ever. I was able to be close right there with Coach Summit for 4 years, but she wanted me to come work for her. The hardest thing I ever had to do was go into her office and look at Pat Summit in the face and tell her I'm not going to take a job with her. And that was really, really hard, because if I would have taken the job, the NCAA had just put in some legislation that if you work in summer basketball, you can't work in college basketball as a non-coach, basically. And so I was running the Tennessee flight, but I couldn't work for Coach Summit as a video person and still work in the Tennessee Flights program, because it was a conflict of interest between summer basketball recruiting and college. And so I made a decision to stay with the summer basketball. I felt like that was going to grow me in connections bigger. Obviously, I had the Pat Summit connection, but it would grow me and help me get up the charts even better. Doing that and telling Coach Summit no was the hardest thing I ever did. But it also helped me develop a relationship with one of my closest friends to date, somebody I still talk to every day, somebody I worked for 5 years, and Matthew Mitchell. And so I was able to meet Coach Mitchell because he was recruiting my players. He was recruiting LaShondra Barrett. He was recruiting Natalie Novosel, some of those girls that I had, Jasmine Hassel, and was trying to get in on those players. And so he and I developed a great relationship. I then, in return, take a director of operations job at Louisiana Tech after that year of summer basketball. Spent a year there, had no clue where that was going with that until our season ended, and I got a phone call from Matthew Mitchell saying, hey, I want to interview you at the Final Four in Tampa. I have 2 spots open on my staff, and I'd like to talk to you about one of those spots. That relationship I built with Matthew in summer basketball allowed me to get that interview, which in return allowed me to get that job for 5 years, which kind of catapulted my career into being the youngest head coach in the SEC, all of the different things that I was able to do.
You mentioned your time as a Doughboy at Louisiana Tech. So a lot of people don't know. Doughboys have an extremely tough time.
The hardest job in the country.
It's not glamorous. It's a lot of grit and grind. You're not on a court, for the most cases, on a court that much. You always know when something goes wrong.
Yep.
You don't receive praise a lot when things go right. Food doesn't come on time, we don't eat.
Yeah.
Hotel rooms aren't right, we're on the bus. So it's a very high pressure job. Tell me about that time. And do you have any funny stories about that time? You know, because I think a lot of people jump to the Doughboy thing and they're thinking it's one thing, and then you're just like, oh, this is way different than what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, everybody jumps into the director of ops role and think, oh, I'm coaching. It has nothing to do with coaching. And when you get into that role, and I think that's for being a video person at Tennessee, a Doughboy at Louisiana Tech, being able to experience those jobs has made me a better person when it comes to being an assistant or a head coach, because I understand what those guys go through. Like you said, you got to make sure the meals are right. You got to make sure when you get to the airport that you got plane tickets. You got to make sure when you get there that every one of them's got an ID. I mean, I've been in situations where we're flying across the country, and one of our girls, so I left my ID in the hotel room. Well, we're 2 hours from the hotel room. We've had to drive one place to another place, and there's no ID. You got to figure out how you're going to get them through. You're trying to do it through the media guide. hey, this is her and the media guy. Like, we've got her proof of who she is. You're showing them different things and copies of IDs. It's a tough position, but it's a position that everybody should have to do at some point or another, because then you understand what they're going through. And so when you're a head coach and you get all pissed off because the rooms ain't ready, or you're all pissed off because the food's not ready, you understand, you know what, that's really out of his or her control. It's in somebody else's hands. And your livelihood at the director of ops job is depending on somebody else doing their job right. Because if they don't do their job right, it falls back on you. And so that becomes tough. Probably the hardest trip I ever had. When I was at La Tech, we was in the old WAC. And so this is before the Mountain West. And so we was at Louisiana Tech. We'd have a road trip at Hawaii. So we'd go to play at Hawaii on a Thursday night. So you'd have to go out on Tuesday. You get there late Tuesday night, early Wednesday morning, your time, your body's still on that clock. You play there on a Thursday night, and then you got to play at Idaho on a Saturday. So get from Hawaii to Idaho. That's hard to do. And pack for that. We pack for Hawaii, and you're there and it's sunny and everything's good. You get on a plane, you're having to fly to play at Idaho. You land in Spokane, Washington. You have to drive down through Pullman and everywhere else and get to Idaho. And there's 10 inches of snow on the ground. And so the travel back then was horrific. I wouldn't push that on anybody in the WAC, but as a director of ops. And that was my first year of really being in college athletics. I lived in an apartment. I didn't make very much money. I think I made like $22,000. And I'll figure out how to live on this. And I lived in an apartment, and my grandmother, you gotta understand, my grandmother and my mom and all them, they come from small town Tennessee. So we go to this apartment and we pull in, and it's, you think somebody's maybe been shot there the night before. You really didn't know. And so we're going in and trying to move my stuff in. The people that before me hadn't really moved their stuff out. I had moved their stuff out, but I hadn't cleaned it up. So it's nasty. So you're trying to clean it all up. And my grandmother opens up this cabinet and she pulls it out. Said, "Oh, they left a cigarette." It was not a cigarette. And I said, "No, Granny, that's not a cigarette. Let me throw that away." But that was $22,000 a month. And that was the best. I met some great friends there. The director of ops on the men's side, he and I lived next to each other and enjoyed our time together and had some great times in Louisiana. But I was very glad to get out of there. When Matthew Mitchell called me, it did not take a lot for me to say yes. I can promise you that. I'd have probably took $18,000. I'd have took a reduction in pay to go to Kentucky.
I understand, Coach. I understand. I don't know if you're a big book reader.
I do.
Okay, awesome. So could you name maybe one or two books that have helped you become a better coach, and why?
I go way back. A lot of people don't really, I guess, I don't know if they understand him. I got close with Coach Calipari during my time at Kentucky. And so he wrote a book, Refuse to Lose, many years ago. And it was about his time at UMass, and about how things were hard for him, how he took over a program that was not very good. And a lot of people see John Calipari now at Kentucky making $9 million and think his life's easy. But if you go back and read that book and how he built himself, how he made himself into being who he is today, as he cut his teeth at his time at UMass when nobody else wanted to go there, and how he built that program, really has inspired me a lot into how I even act today as I continue to try to build Middle Tennessee State's program into being what we want it to be. We're not near to where we want to be. Now, we've had success and been in 11 or 12 NCAA tournaments and did all that. Great. But we're not near to where we want to be. And that book has really helped me when it comes to that. And so I read a lot on Calipari. I read a lot on Phil Jackson. Phil Jackson's book about the Ring of Honors and different stuff with the Bulls, his times with the Bulls, his time with the Lakers. I think those things that they intrigue me the most. My wife has got me now started trying to read books on my iPad. She said it's a lot less expensive and a lot less storage around the house when I don't have a million books sitting around. She got me a Kobe Bryant book on his life. I'm excited about reading that. I'm a big Kobe guy, and so I'm gonna start that this summer. And then there's a new book that's coming out on Coach K that's kind of intrigued me, that somebody has wrote on him that's basically about him, but without his permission. And so that one kind of intrigues me a little bit to see really who Coach K really is. Never met him, but I'd like to really know who he really is, and not just the person I see on TV, that kind of thing.
Awesome. So your next stop, Kentucky.
Yeah.
Power 5 program. It's another ball game, another level. You're in the SEC, one of the best, if not the best conferences in America. Resources are there.
Yeah.
But it's tough. All the coaches have pretty decent resources in the SEC. So how hard was it there to really turn the corner and take that program to the next level? And, you could just tell me about your experience there, because, there is a method to the madness.
It was probably a lot harder than what people think. When I first got there with Matthew, it was Matthew starting his second year, and Kyra Elsie and I both were hired basically on the same day as assistant coaches. And we were, Wendy Palmer was still there as an assistant. And then the next year, Wendy leaves and Shalon Pillow comes in. But I remember, I go back our first year, we were in the NIT, and we were very fortunate to be in NIT. I didn't think we were very good. And we go play at Wisconsin, and we get beat. I think it was 35-34, 34-33. It may have set basketball back 100 years. It was so bad of a game. And I remember that night, we go back to Chicago, and we're flying commercial back to Lexington the next day. And we go down on the water, Matthew and I, Kyra do, and we decide that day that we're going to change the way we play, the way we recruit, every little thing that we wanted to do, we want to make a change. And we were very fortunate. We had a really good player, Victoria Dunlap, that really bought into our change. And probably a big reason why I was there is Victoria Dunlap. She played summer basketball for me. She ended up being 2-time SEC Player of the Year over the next 2 seasons. We ended up going to 3 or 4 Elite Eights during the next went to 3 Elite Eights over the next 4 years. And we was able to sign a girl named Adia Mathis, but who really set us up and really believed in what we were doing at Kentucky. Kentucky has resources. Kentucky is an elite of an elite basketball job. And at the University of Kentucky, they care about basketball. Now, their football's got better. You got an athletic director, Mitch Barnhart, that if one of the best, if not the best ADs in the country in terms of believing into what your vision is and what you want to do. I'm very fortunate to work for an AD just like that here at Middle Tennessee, and Chris Massaro. But Mitch Barnhart really, really believed in what we were doing and basically said, go do what you have to do to make it work. And from a basketball standpoint, when you can bring recruits to a midnight madness and to a big blue madness, what they call it, and you got 20,000 people in the stands, there's no need of bringing a recruit to anything else but that. And that we would tell recruits that you're going to go to Georgia, you're going to go to Florida, you go to those places, they're going to take you to a football game and they're going to have huge crowds. Great. I'm happy for them, but you're not playing football. Not playing football. You're playing basketball. And when you come to Kentucky, this is what you're going to come and see is 20,000 here for a basketball practice, basically. And so we started doing that. And we had a AAU guy that really believed in us, Apache Pascal. Really, really, and Lauren Best really, really believed in us and believed in what we were doing and what we were selling. And we believed if we got one McDonald's All-American, we would become a cool place to come for these elite level recruits. We had to find the one that would believe in us and had coaches that believed in us that would help us with that. And it was Jennifer O'Neill. Jennifer O'Neill played for Apache. She trained and lived with a guy named Jerry Powell, which became it still is a close friend of mine, which is a trainer up in Long Island area. They really bought into what we were doing. They believed in what we were doing. Jennifer O'Neill commits to Kentucky. Next thing you know, my last year at Kentucky, when I first got there, we had 0 McDonald's All-Americans. My last season at Kentucky, 11 of our 13 kids were McDonald's All-Americans. And it all started with Jennifer O'Neill. And you see this picture in the background. That's those kids that really believed. I still carry that picture where I go. Those are all McDonald's All-Americans that really believed in what we were doing in Kentucky, but it all started with Jennifer O'Neill. And the next thing you know, you get Samari Walker, you get Bria Goss, you get Denisha Stallworth, and you just go right down the line. And then we ended up signing a young lady that ended up being a 3-time SEC Player of the Year that was under-recruited, that a lot of people didn't know about, Adia Mathis. Adia Mathis is not, if not the greatest. Her and Ryan Howard will go down in the books as 2 of the greatest players ever played at the University of Kentucky. Adia Mathis was very much under-recruited. We were sitting at an AAU game, Kyra Elsie, Matthew Mitchell, and myself, watching Shanika Smith play. I don't know if Shanika is now the assistant at St. John's. And we were hard and heavy on Shanika. It got down between us and St. John's, and we thought we had to have Shanika. And Adia Mathis hung 40 on the Exodus in an AAU tournament, Battle on the Borough, when it was in Murfreesboro. And Apache walks off the floor and tells me, you don't need to worry about Shanika. You need to go get your local girl on Adia. And he was right. He was right. And she committed to us, and she was unbelievably good. And so we had a lot of success there. And I say this, I don't brag about this kind of stuff, but when I took the job at Kentucky, I was the lowest paid assistant coach in the SEC. Matthew said, this is all they're going to allow me to pay you, was $40,000 or whatever it is. You have no experience, this and that. I didn't complain. I didn't worry about it. I went and got me a little 1-bedroom apartment. It's one of the greatest apartments I ever lived in. In my life. Again, love this little place I was living in. When I left there 5 years later, I started making $40,000. My last season at Kentucky, I was making $225,000 a year. I say all that because I didn't start there. I ended there. And when Matthew hired me, I said, I'll earn whatever I earn. I'll work for whatever I earn. Probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made was jumping from there to Ole Miss. But at the same time, it was the greatest thing that ever happened to me, is because I met my wife and I have 2 children now. And I would have never met her if I would have stayed at Kentucky. But when I look back on it, I still get sick to my stomach because I love the University of Kentucky that much and believe so much in what we were doing that I felt like over the next 2 to 3 years, we would have had a chance to win a national championship. And I hated not doing that there, because when Matthew first hired me, that was what we set out to do. And now we do some great things. Absolutely. Did I enjoy my time there? Absolutely. Do I still go back there? Absolutely. I may be there this weekend at Keeneland betting on horses. There's a good chance I'll be doing that. But Kentucky is a phenomenal place. It's a place that I will always call home. And some of my best friends in the world still live there. And I go up there quite a bit to visit.
So quick overshare. So I'm 20 years old.
Yeah.
I started working at Slam magazine. I don't know if you ever heard of Slam.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay. So when I got there, they had asked me what I wanted to take on. So I told them, I said, look, I want to run women's college basketball. Like, that's what I want. Give me that. Y'all can have everything else. Just give me women's basketball and give me some WNBA stuff. So he gives it to me. He just run with it. So one of the first things I do is I say, we're going to do a monthly diary with two players. So he's like, who do you want? Adia Matthews.
Yep.
He was like, that's who you want? I said, that is who I want. I've seen her play a bunch. She's special. And she does get the credit she deserves. So it was her and I think Alyssa Thomas.
Yep.
Time too. And Alyssa she was legit, man. She was legit. And so one thing I remember about that time is how, and I'm a talker, as you can see, I like to talk.
I do too.
I don't think there's nothing wrong with it. But they were so patient with me, and they enjoyed the experience of just talking about basketball. And I could tell their passion for the game. You know, I think Adia had a lot of love for the game of basketball and a lot of love for Kentucky. That was, evident to me, So, I wish her nothing but success, seemed like a very good kid, and I'm happy that your experience with her was great as well.
She is.
Um,
She's a great person, and um, to a point that her Adia was a name that came up when my wife and I had our first daughter. That we made. There was a chance Adia's name was going to be in the daughter's name, because I got a head job because of Adia Mathis. I got a head job at Ole Miss because Adia Mathis and how special she was as a basketball player made me look like I knew a little bit about what I was doing. And her family's great people. Her mom, her dad, her sister, just great people.
mhm. You then went on to become the head coach at Ole Miss. At that time, what made this school the ideal fit for you in that job?
What's that now? I lost you there. What'd you say?
I said you went on to become a head coach at Ole Miss. At that time, what made that program an ideal fit for you?
I didn't I didn't investigate that program enough. I saw it as an SEC job.
Mhm.
Bang, I want to be there. It's an SEC job. I didn't look into what was going on inside of that job before I took that job, due to a lot of people don't realize this, but before I got there, the reason why I got the job, a lot of reason probably why, is because we were under NCAA investigation, which ended up being NCAA probation due to the staff previous to me. So there was a lot of self-imposed penalties. There was a lot of self-imposed sanctions that was put on the program that I didn't investigate enough to know what was about to happen when I took over that job. What made it ideal was the SEC. The Southeastern Conference is an elite conference, and any chance I was like, you know what, I'm an assistant, I get an opportunity to be the head coach in the SEC. You got to take that. You got to take that. Hindsight's 2020. If I'd have looked at it then, maybe I wouldn't have took it if I'd have knew all the struggles that was going to go on with it. But incredible experience. I was not ready for it. I was 29 years old. Everybody says, you're ready, you're ready, you're ready, you're ready. Everybody's telling me to take it, take it, take it. And you don't really know if you're ready or you're not ready until you get inside of one of those things. Now, at 10 years later, at 39, I'm a lot more ready for that type of job than I was at 29. And just the day-to-day grind, the day-to-day things that you have to deal with, the type of players you recruit, all of those type of things, the people that you're going to put inside your program nowadays would change for me as it didn't then. You know what I mean? Then it was like, bang, I'm this young hotshot recruiter that come from Kentucky, that I was able to get these players. You know what? I'm going to walk back in these homes and I'm going to get the same players I got at Kentucky. Wrong approach. It was the wrong approach to take. I should have went in and figured out what players are going to fit me, because then you end up losing those players because you're not going to beat Kentucky. You're not going to beat Connecticut. Before I left Kentucky, we had just beat Connecticut on the first player we ever tried to beat them on. That was Lene Harper. So then I thought, you know what? I can beat Connecticut on a recruit. Didn't realize it was because I was at Kentucky, I could beat them on the recruit. It was hard to beat. I did a home visit with different players, and I was watching the Final Four the other night. The draft, I told my wife, I said, I did a home visit at Ole Miss with her. Did a home visit at Ole Miss with her. Wasn't getting those players at Ole Miss at the time. And so, I appreciate my experience there. I'm very appreciative of that. But as I look back on it, I'm a lot better and more prepared for that now as I was then. And, I wouldn't trade it for anything, because it made me grow up as a coach. It made me grow up as a person. It allowed me to meet my wife and I have two lovely children for it. But that experience of getting fired, and I'll say I got fired. I mean, they say it's a mutual agreement when you part ways. It's never that. But that experience of that has made me a better coach. And today at Middle Tennessee, I'm a lot better coach and a lot more prepared to be a head coach as I was then.
A lot of people don't know the interview process.
Yeah.
I'm a young coach as well. It can be rigorous. It's a lot of questions that they asked you, whether it be for a head coach position or an assistant coach position. Two-part question. Tell me the difference in levels of preparation. Like, what are the assumptions that when you walk through that door, what are they looking for when you become a head coach? Like, for example, like I come through with my portfolio and my my slogans and my this and my that and my culture type of things is that thing, is that. And can you give me an example of one or two very hard questions you had to answer? When you look back, you say, I wish I answered that one different, or they caught me off guard with that one. That was a good question.
I would say I was extremely prepared for it due to Matthew Mitchell. He had me prepared every single day. He put me through an interview process of what it's going to be like at that level for my last 2 seasons with him. And he would ask me tough questions. He would put different things on me to prepare me for an interview process of that. Probably why I got the job is I was really prepared for it. Is there tough questions that are asked? Absolutely. I took the approach. I wanted to answer the question before they asked the question. In any interview process I've been in, it's been about, when they ask me to talk about who I am and what my philosophy is and what my plan is, I wanted to make sure in that 10 minutes I got to talk to that committee that I answered every question every one of them had, so they didn't have to ask me that question. And when you go around the room and they say, okay, I take any questions, and they say, well, you've already answered mine, you've already answered this, you've already answered that. That means I've done my job, because now they haven't had to sit around and wait on me to answer the question when they ask. It's what's on their mind. The hardest question I've got anywhere, and I interviewed at 2 different places, got offered both jobs. I'm not going to say the other place. I turned one job down the year before I took the Ole Miss job at a very good program that I probably, looking back on it, may have should have took, because I was able to grow myself a little bit more and been better suited and ready for the SEC head coaching job if I'd have done that, but I didn't. Why Ole Miss and why now? When they ask you that, and when a president of a university asks you, why Ole Miss and why now? That's a lot harder question to answer than it sounds. Because if you make one mistake with that answer to a president, you're not getting the job. And so why Ole Miss? You have to go through, if I just go in and say Ole Miss because it's in the SEC, then that president's going to look at me and say, leave. I've got to be able to answer that question, why Ole Miss? And it's got to be an answer to that question. It's not just about Ole Miss athletics, or not just about Middle Tennessee or Kentucky athletics. It's got to be about everything about that university, that town, everything packed into one answer right there. And then why now? Why are you leaving Kentucky now? You've just come off an Elite Eight. You got everybody back. You can get any job you want. If you sit around and wait a year, and maybe Andy Landers retires, maybe you get that. Maybe this person retires, maybe you get that. Why are you leaving and coming to Ole Miss now when you've had other opportunities? Again, tough question to answer. And it don't sound like they're tough questions to answer, but they're very tough questions to answer, because you have to get those questions right.
Yeah.
In every interview I've been on, those 2 questions have been asked.
Okay. Awesome. Yep. Writing that one down, Coach. Writing that one down. You're back with your dad, Middle Tennessee State. Tell me why that was, that decision was the right one at this point in your career.
Had other options and was about to take another option. I was, my wife and I were getting married on April 28th. On April 30th, I was getting on an airplane to go meet with another option in a Power 5 league of a great program. That program that's going to Sweet 16s, Elite 8s, and doing great things. I was going to take a job at that university. So I walked my wife down the aisle, or not down the aisle. Her dad walks her down the aisle. We marry, say our vows, say I do. I walk back out. As I'm walking out with my wife on my arm, the president of Middle Tennessee sticks his hand out and whispers in my ear, I just approved your hire. You're staying at home. That happened. True story.
Well,
I didn't even know they were trying to approve my hire. So you're not going anywhere. I've approved your hire and you're staying home to work for your dad. I looked at my wife. I said, what do you want to do? She said, I'm glad that happened, because I wasn't wanting to live where you were about to take me to, but I was going to do it. And so coming back home and working for my dad, being around family, being with family has been one of the greatest decisions I ever made. When I left my house, when I graduated high school and left and went to college, I haven't lived at home with my brothers, my family, or nobody for my whole professional career. From college on, where my brothers and my friends and all them been at home. I've been traveling and living in different places, where it be Louisiana, Mississippi, Kentucky, different places, Knoxville. I've been living at different places. And so being back home with family and friends, I didn't really know how much I would like that, but I love it. Middle Tennessee State is a special, special place, and a place that I grew up around, a place where I grew up and loving their athletics. And, I'm excited. I was excited about coming home, and I am so grateful and appreciative to our administration here, allow me to work for my father. That's a step or two you have to take because of nepotism and different things like that. And being able to work for my dad every single day is there's good days and there's bad days. He and I argue. If you watch us on the bench, we will argue over there. We have different philosophies on a lot of different things, but he's taught me so much. And like I told you, I grew up a lot during my 5 years at Ole Miss as a head coach. There's a lot of things I would do different. A lot of things I would do different. Now I'm appreciative of those young ladies I coached. Taylor Manuel, Lissa Austin. I can just go right to Tia Fowler-Roos, Medina Muhammad's. I can go right down the line of different players I coached at Ole Miss that I loved every second of it and would love to coach them one day again if I could. If they have kids, I hope I get to coach their kids. But as I fast forward to Middle Tennessee, I've grown up a lot as a coach, as a person, and I love every single day I get to go to work and work alongside my father, Kim Bruton, Nina Davis, Eddie Sanders, the different people I work with. We're all on the same wavelength and the same thought process of what we're doing, and it's an exciting time right now here with us.
You guys had a really good season. You went to the Final Four, WNIT, really got hot near the end of the season. What allowed you guys to be so successful this year?
7 of our 11 players on our roster were in their first year or second year in the program. We're very young. And so we knew at some point we were going to click. Early on, we had some ups and downs. But when you go 27-7 or whatever we went, you didn't have too many downs. But helping this team mold together and watching this team come together as one, it was one of the best years of my coaching career. And, we knew at some point we were going to peak. And we knew it was going to happen, hopefully later in the season rather than early in the season. And we had a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter in our conference tournament and get upset, a game that we probably should have won by 20 points. And so that one burned us a little bit. And we really didn't know what would happen in the NIT. We didn't know how our girls would respond. And we were all down. Every one of us were. We go to practice after we get back from the conference tournament. All of us are down, upset. We get there in practice and we have a terrible, terrible practice on a Monday. So then Tuesday we come back in and we know we're playing Winthrop, I believe it was, in the first round. And once we figured out, we called them together and said, look, guys, we either going to get beat and start workouts next week, or we can keep pushing this thing forward and see what we can do. And our girls clicked then, and we had a great practice that day, and we really played some of our best basketball of the year late. And I think a lot of it had to do was we matured a lot. We got older as the season went on, and we returned to everybody except one player. We've got a great girl coming out of the transfer portal, plus we have 3 other great players we've signed. So we got a roster next year we feel really good about. We think the NIT could propel us into doing something even more special next year, making it around the NCAA tournament.
Couple more questions, Coach. Couple more questions. What are some non-negotiables you have that you feel have allowed your program to thrive?
Consistency is a non-negotiable. That's something we talk about every day. Be consistent in life. I have to be consistent in life. I ask our players to be consistent in life. Everything you do, be consistent in every little thing you do. And then there's 3 words. There's 2 things that you can control every single day. And we talk about it. It's their energy and their enthusiasm. Be energetic about life. Be energetic that you woke up this morning and you can go to class at a great university. Be energetic and have enthusiasm that you get to come over here and practice and play in a program that expects to win And so we talk a lot about our energy and our enthusiasm. And the last word we talk a lot about, a third word, is toughness. Life's not fair. We tell every one of our girls. We grow them not only athletically, but we work really hard at growing them socially and academically, and particularly socially more than anything. This world is not fair. And so we look at all the things that go on in the world, and we educate them on every little thing that's going on. They educate us on things that they feel. And so them are areas when it comes to toughness, everything kind of revolves right back to that of life's not fair. It's going to knock you down. And when you're laying there on the ground, you got one or two choices: stay on the ground and let somebody stomp on you, or stand back up and look at them in their eyes. And so we talk about those things, and those are just non-negotiables that we have in our program. So we recruit to that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So choose one or the other. All right. You'd be one of the two options. You're a great X's and O's guy, down by one, sideline out of bounds. You're getting somebody open. They're getting a good shot. You're always prepared. You're always on top of things. But in regards to the fiery speeches and motivating the kids, you're kind of like, I don't want to say dull, but you're not that rah-rah type of guy. That's not you. Or you can be the Coach Carters, you could be the Denzel Washington, and Remember the Titans. Like, you can make the kids run through a brick wall for you. But down by one, the ball on the side, you don't know what to do there. That's not your strength. You're not that guy. Choose one. Which one do you want to be?
I'd rather be the guy that can get your team home. And I tell our girls this all the time: if you'll get us to that last minute, it's my job to get you home. It's my job to get you home with a win. And I can't sleep at night if we're down by one and we don't get a shot at the rim to win the game, and I didn't do my job. That irritates me. There was a game this year that just ate me up, and to a point where the girls were like, "Coach, stop worrying about it. It's fine." We had a shot to go up one with like 6 seconds to go, and we had a timeout. The other team didn't. We made the decision. I made the decision by telling my dad, "Don't call a timeout. They don't have a timeout." So we score to go up one. They're racing back down the floor, and they throw one up at the buzzer, and it goes in and beats us by one. Should I call the timeout? Yes. As I look back on it, we should have wasted our timeout to get our defense set. We didn't get our defense set. They raced back at us. We didn't get our defense set. We were in a scramble with them. They throw it up, hit it one at the buzzer, and beat us one. That ate me up. That killed me for 2 days. I just couldn't get over that I let our team down. Did I draw a play up that helped us get the lead? Yes. Did we do that? Yes. Did we take the 1-point lead? Yes. But I didn't get us home. We got the lead, but I didn't get us home. By getting us home, maybe I call the timeout. Maybe we get our defense set. They don't hit that shot. We win the game. Maybe they still do hit the shot and we lose the game. But I'd like to know, and I could have got our defense set for us to win the game. And so that kind of stuff really irritates me. And really, that's what drives me as a coach, is making sure that, hey, look, if you're going to give me everything you got, it's my responsibility that when we get in a close game, that I draw something up, that we get an opportunity to win that game. Against Seton Hall, we got a shot. We're down one with 2 seconds to go. Ball on our side. We advance the ball. We get a shot at the rim. It doesn't go in. You know what? It just wasn't our day right there. We get beat by one. But we did what we were supposed to do. Our players executed what we drew up. We got a shot at the rim. It just didn't go in. Did we get fouled? Absolutely. We got fouled. Referees didn't blow the whistle? Absolutely. Probably should have went to the line and had 2 free throws, but we didn't. We did our job. And that's right there. I can sleep. I was able to sleep that Thursday night. If we wouldn't have got a shot up, that'd have been on me as a coach. And I can't, that's the kind of stuff that kills me.
If you could give a young coach one piece of advice, what would it be and why?
Stay consistent. Stay consistent. Don't want to skip steps. Work extremely hard and know your day's coming. God has a plan for every single one of us. Now, what that plan is and when that plan takes shape, I don't know. but he has a plan for every single one of us. And for me, my plan was able to go to Kentucky and the Ole Miss and all this, and my plan's back here middle. Some people are an assistant for 20 years until they finally get their opportunity. There's some great assistant coaches out there right now that I'm just roll my eyes when they don't get jobs and people get jobs. And you're like, how did that person get a job over this person? Because this person has been in this thing for 20 years, worked their butt off and does everything right. Well, it's just not their time yet. Stay consistent with it. Don't jump out of the business, because I see a lot of good coaches. I'm going to get out of the business because I can make more money somewhere else. Why are you in this business for? I'm not in it to make money. If I wanted to make money, I'd go work on Wall Street somewhere. I'd have got an accountant degree to be able to make money that way. And I can live in this big house. I'm in it because I love the game of basketball. I love helping young women change their lives. I coach women's basketball. People ask me this all the time. Why not men's basketball? I want to see young women achieve excellence at the high level. I don't watch the men's Final Four. I watch the women's Final Four. I watch the WNBA. I want to see these players do great, great things. And so that's why I coach women's basketball, because I have a belief in what these women can do and what they're doing in life and what they can do in life. And it excites me about that.
Awesome. Awesome. What can we expect to see from this team? Not wins and losses, but what can we expect? Like if I walked into a Middle Tennessee game and I watch you guys play, what would I say? What do you think I'll like feel like or see?
You're going to see a team that's going to give everything they got for their university. You're going to see a team that give everything they got for each other. And that's what we pride ourselves on each and every day, is making sure that you do those things, and the wins will come. The wins will come if you'll give everything you got for your university and for your teammates.
Awesome. Awesome. Anything I missed you want to share, Coach?
I appreciate it. We've got a speaker on campus today that I think they're wanting me to go over to that. So I appreciate everything. And for young coaches out there, if I can ever help you, feel free to email me or call me or tweet at me, whatever it is.
Okay.
Hey, thank you. I appreciate everything you do for women's basketball. And I look forward to seeing you at Boo. Come see me.
Awesome, Coach. Awesome, Coach.